protect the American economy, and eliminate the risk of a catastrophic default. Once this bill reaches the Senate, which I hope will be later this evening, the Senate will move quickly to pass the bill, send it to the President's desk, and put the awful and devastating risk of default behind us. Now, no one on either side would call this agreement perfect. No one got every single thing they wanted. That's why it's a bipartisan agreement. However, this agreement accomplishes two major goals. It spares the American people from a catastrophic default and preserves many of the most important investments we've passed over the last few years. From the very beginning, Democrats have warned that default is a disaster and absolutely must be taken off the table. So moving forward on this agreement is the sensible, responsible thing to do and most vital for our country. We're getting close to putting this threat of default behind us, but there's still more work, perhaps the most important work to do, passing it into law. I hope the House will do its job later today and urge my colleagues in this chamber to be prepared to do the same when the time comes, and it's coming soon. Senator Durbin.
Thanks, Chuck. This week, we're faced with the need for Congress to again perform its constitutional duty and prevent the first ever default on our national debt. Over the weekend, a bipartisan agreement was reached to accomplish this. It represents a true compromise. Neither side got everything that they wanted. But the agreement does maintain funding for clean energy, protects student debt relief for millions of borrowers, and beats back extreme cuts of up to $130 billion to programs that American families count on. It protects Medicaid, minimizes the harmful cuts to SNAP and TANF benefits that were being demanded by congressional Republicans, while expanding SNAP benefits for veterans, people who are homeless, and those transitioning out of foster care. I am deeply, deeply disappointed that congressional Republicans are forcing a roughly $500 million cut in medical research at NIH in order to avoid defaulting on the debt for the first time in history. Funding for NIH means new cures and treatments, well-paying jobs in every state in the union, and it's a crucial pillar in our efforts to remain competitive with China and to stand by American families in some of their toughest hours. All things Republicans claim they support. The NIH cuts contained in this agreement are short-sighted and will actually hurt Americans and patients. I do not support these cuts. As a member of the Appropriations Committee, I'll continue to work to reverse any harm done, but it's a tough, tough assignment. Patty Murray, as chair of the Appropriations Committee, reminded us during this lunch that this is not going to be an easy appropriations process because of this agreement. Let's be clear, though. This is a manufactured political crisis. We must avoid defaulting on our national debt. A default would plunge our economy into a recession and global financial crisis, causing the loss of as many as 7 million jobs in the United States. It would cause interest rates to go up, making mortgage, credit card, and car payments more expensive. And default could risk the timely payment of Social Security, including for the 2.2 million people in Illinois who rely on it. It would jeopardize salaries for millions of service members and benefits for veterans, including more than 600,000 veterans in Illinois. Here's the bottom line. We keep our commitments, we pay our jobs, and now let's finish the job. I think you're next.
I think I am. Well, good afternoon. President Biden and Democrats have been very clear. Letting our country default is simply not an option, period. We could lose millions of jobs, as we've heard about. Interest rates would soar. Retirement accounts would plummet. Our country would be thrown into a deep recession. Businesses, communities, families across Michigan and across the country are counting on us to take action to prevent an economic meltdown, and that's what this bill does. First, and most importantly, it prevents a catastrophic default. It protects folks who depend on Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security and veterans benefits, and families won't face rising interest rates in a deep recession, just as we are now getting the economy going in such a strong way. Second, this agreement protects the important investments we've been making to rebuild America and to bring jobs home. which is what we are going to continue to focus on and continue to get done. We know how important these investments are in Michigan. We're seeing the results every day. So, is the deal perfect? No. But it's necessary. It is a necessary bipartisan agreement, and it needs to get passed and sent to the President as soon as possible.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I can't think of if we went backwards. I can't think of this idea that there would be a default on America, and that's why we were so horrified when the Republicans in the House were heading that way. That's why this compromise is so important. I spent the last week at home, and what did I hear about? Well, what did I see? I saw crowded graduations with parents and grandparents back again. I saw restaurants with lines out the door in Duluth. I saw little retail shops that were finally getting business again. My husband and I went to see the movie Air, best ever, which I suggest you do when this debt ceiling drama is over. The theater was finally filled with people. People are coming back from the pandemic. And the last thing we need right now is spiraling up the interest rates, is crashing the economy. And that's why this compromise is so important. I will note that because of the leadership of the President, the leadership of Democrats, we were able to protect Social Security and Medicare. We made sure, as all of us went out for Memorial Day events, that we could tell our veterans that the burn pit bill, the PACT bill, and those that went through Vietnam and are still suffering from the effects of Agent Orange, that their benefits were protected. We were able to tell them that this is a 2-year agreement, so we won't have the same debt ceiling drama, as much as you love it, next year. That is all in this agreement. So I think it is really important that we get this done, and so that we can go home over the next weekend and be able to say our economy is strong and our country is strong.
Thank you, my great colleagues. Go ahead, Chad.
Thank you. Good afternoon. You're in tune with the markets in New York here. How quickly does this have to move through? Does it have to be done by Friday, or are you able to stave this off over the weekend?
We want to get it done as soon as possible. As soon as possible. Yes.
Thank you, Leader Schumer. One, will you allow amendments on the Senate floor as it pertains to the debt ceiling bill? And two, what do you say to progressives who criticize this deal, for example, citing the increased work requirements?
Okay. Number one, what was your first question?
If you allow amendments on the floor.
Yes, we can't send anything back to the House. That would risk default, plain and simple. And as for the work requirements, it's a far cry from what the Republicans started out with and asked for. Yes.
The CR provision, the kind of automatic CR that's included in this bill, are you confident that that would prevent any sort of government shutdown this fall?
Well, look, we have to avoid a government shutdown. There are some on the hard right, just as they want to default. We'll try to push for a government shutdown. We'll do everything we can to avoid it, and there are provisions in the bill that make that less likely. Manu.
You had said some time ago that you did not think the Speaker could pass a bill. You didn't think there was going to be any negotiation. There would be a clean debt ceiling increase. Did you underestimate Speaker McCarthy?
Hey, look at the results. Number one, we avoided default, our number one goal, which we've been talking about from day one. Number two, it is a far, far cry from where the Republicans started out. Yes. Yeah, you. You tried to see me in the hallway, and I said, come here. I remember Mike.
What amendments will you allow to be voted on in order to get a time agreement? Do you expect a time?
We are going to do everything we can to move the bill quickly, and we cannot send anything back to the House, plain and simple. Yes, Bolton.
What do you think about the Rand Paul amendment? It would cut total spending, including mandatory spending, by 5%.
Again, let me repeat. We cannot send anything back to the House, plain and simple. We must avoid default. Must. Yes, last one. We didn't have the votes, plain and simple. One person was public. We only had 50, Manchin. There were 3 or 4 who were against it as well. Thank you.